Hi everyone, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you. This is a collectible tank in the Japanese line. It is the Tier 6 Saunders Firefly, and as always we'll have a full review for you. This is a relatively new tank. It just turned up this year. It's in the stores now. It's around €8 on the European server, and it's actually from Girls on Panzer. It's part of that range, like the Koromoro Mina, like the Panzer Anko SP and the Hetzer SP. We'll have a look at tech spec, and we're going to have a look at blitzhanger.com, which is a great website for all blitzers, and you should be using it if you're not already. Now, let's take a time out for a second and let's have a look at the background of this tank, because if, like me, you're sort of a dude in his 40s, you probably don't know what the fuck Girls on Panzer is. I have to say, I will openly admit I had no fucking clue. I'd seen people talking about it on forums and that, but I decided to probably have a look. So just to give you a bit of background, so Girls on Panzer is a Japanese anime series. You can have a look at some of the still shots from the TV show. I think it ran for 2 seasons, and it spawned some games, it spawned a couple of movies, etc. And it seems to be very popular amongst the younger people, our younger gamers. But that's the mystery reveal, guys, if you're kind of me wondering what the fuck is this. So basically the principle is that it's sort of set in an alternate universe where high schools in Japan actually compete in tank combat, which sounds pretty fucking cool actually, and they use sort of World War II technology, World War II tanks. Here are the schools that compete, so you've got the Koromoro Mina, and then of course you see Saunders, which is where this tank comes from. And it's sort of there's a lot of detail to it, so if you look at the sort of geographical locations of the schools, they're all over Japan, and they compete against each other in these tanking competitions. And you can see there's Saunders down in what in our universe is Nagasaki. So just a bit of background there as to what all this is about. Never seen an episode of it, but I just thought, ignorance is a choice in this day and age, so I thought I'd Google it and see what the fuck it's all about. So now we know. Anyway, back to the tank itself. It's a collectible tank. In terms of provisions, I would run white rice, improved fuel, and onigiri, which is rice balls, which I also looked up on Google because I don't fucking clue what that is either. But so basically, it's just more rice, isn't it? In terms of setting up, I would use gun rammer supercharge, vertical stabilizer. I would run gun rammer over calibrated shells because this tank has very good pen anyway. So therefore, I would use the gun rammer, and vertical stabilizer of course helps as you're going to be firing a lot when you're moving as a medium tank. Now it has a 17 pounder gun, which for those of us who live in the 21st century is actually 76mm gun, so it's pretty much standard gun you get on tier 6 Shermans. It has 171mm of pen on AP, which is great. 239mm of pen with APCR. This is not using calibrated shells. This is just using gun rammer, and has 20 with HE. So load up a few HE rounds. You're not going to use that too much. Muzzle velocity when you use supercharge is 1149 meters per second, which is pretty good. And its gun index, its G index, is 11.5k, which is pretty good for a tier 6. And actually, if you look at one of the best tanks in the tier, the VK-20-1, has about just over 12k. So if you compare it to the best tank, it has very, very good gun handling. Gun depression is 6 degrees, elevation is 20 degrees. So basically it has just adequate, just okay gun alignment. It's nothing special. But the power to weight ratio sucks. So it does 40 kilometers per hour, 15 reverse, but you very rarely get there because honestly the power to weight ratio in this thing is really bad. It also has poor traverse, so therefore I would use engine accelerator to help with this, because it will help also with the engine and also with your traverse, and then it will also help when you're brawling, because it does have a good rate of fire, it does have a good reload. It's 4.8 seconds, so I'd use engine accelerator. Now in terms of the armor profile, as you'd expect from a Sherman, a tier 6, it doesn't have huge armor anywhere. It does have a strong turret, it does have that gun mantlet as we can see here. The other thing is though, you can side scrape in this, particularly if you're up against other mediums. If you look at the relative armor numbers here on the left top left of the screen, you'll see that they're all red if you run along the side of the tank. So you can side scrape, and I'm actually going to demonstrate that to you in the gameplay that we're going to have a look at. As you would imagine with all of the British and American orientated, I know it's in Japanese line, but its origins are American. It has very light armor on the sides, and its butt is particularly vulnerable, and therefore you need to be very careful, because if you're playing again tier 6 and tier 7, there's a lot of big guns there now, right? The Smasher we all know about, but there's also, like, you know, Thunder, the new tank which has been introduced. There's KV-1S, you know, there's all these big guns there that can really do a lot of damage to you, particularly with HE rounds. So you need to be very careful, or your game can be over before it begins. And we look here, even when you're top tier, the armor profile is very, very weak. It's not armor; it's not its thing, right? But as we said, the reload is 4.8 seconds, so it's a good rate of fire, and that means it is a decent brawler despite that poor traverse, despite that poor power to weight ratio. This tank is not that maneuverable. It feels very clunky when you're operating it. View range though is good, right? It's 278.8 meters, so 280 I think is the best in tier 6, so it's right up there. And concealment is decent, so at a view range of 280 meters, you need to get within 225 meters of you to spot you up if you're still. So it means that it's decent scout. So you can scout with this tank, but as I said, you need to be aware of those big guns. You can, if you're hitting the side or on the back by a big derp gun, you can be one-shotted in this tank, right? It has 900 plus hit points, right? So therefore you there's 960 hit points, right? So you can very easily be one-shotted by a smash or something like that if he hits you up the butt. So you need to be very careful. We're going to have a look at gameplay here. I mean, in terms of tactics with this tank, basically play as your standard medium. You're going to be playing a supporting role mainly because you are not going to be the fastest, either in terms of top speed or in getting to a location in this tank, right? You are going to be lagging behind because of that poor power to weight ratio. So you're going to be playing a supporting role in many cases if there's other medium tanks and light tanks on your team. But, you know, going down the standard medium channel, playing this tank as a medium, and also its view range and its concealment numbers allow it to scout if there's nothing else on your team that can do that. But you see here I have an MT25, so you'd be looking for him to go out in front and to scout or spot. I'm going to go and get to C. I'm going to try to spot up at C, see if I can do some damage. As you can see, in terms of its customized paint job, it is a decent looking tank. It's very, very similar to the standard tech line Sherman Firefly, but it has a few body differences, and it also has this great paint job. So it is a good looking tank. Good looking collectible tank. Now you see there for me, really sloppy lazy play at the start. I don't even know what the fuck I was doing. I just sat there and just got smashed by the two of them. I don't know if I got distracted or what, but it just was really poor play for me there. But look, you know, once I'm into this position now, I can use the rate of fire, I can use the concealment numbers, etc., and I can pop out and put some rounds in. So you can see I'm looking for some targets here, and the Sturv is there, so I'm able to hit him. And I'm able to put in some damage, plus I've spotted them up, and my allies are able to clear them off. So a very poor start to this game for me. Really, really sloppy play. I don't really know what the hell I was doing. And I lost, like, 40% of my hit points. But, you know, after that I kind of recover a bit and have a decent game, and I think this delivers a first class mastery badge. So see here, I'm waiting to see if anyone's going to pop around that corner. They're not, so what I decide to do in a few seconds, I'm going to push on and capture C. One of my allies pushes on, so I'm going to support him and take C. You saw there I snapped off around at the Panzer 4, and we discussed this in the other videos. When you have a fast loading tank like this, you can afford to take spec shots, you can afford to snap off rounds, because if they don't hit, it doesn't really matter because you've reloaded very quickly, right? So you're able to engage and be active in the game more than you can with slow reloading tanks. Again, there you see snapshot. Gun handling is good on this tank. As I said, its gun index is 11.5k, so it's almost up there with the best in tier. And you can see here, nice shot, slow it down there, eye of the needle stuff. So the gun handling is good, it won't let you down. And as I said, I would use the gun rammer, supercharge, and vertical stabilizer, because as a medium tank you fire a lot when you're moving, so therefore vertical stabilizer is probably a better option than using refined gun. Now we're going to have a look at a bit of a brawl here. Me up against the T34, sorry, it's actually Type 58, which is basically T34-85. Now this is the side scraping here. So I go into a side scraping position, and there I go, I get my bounce. And this is exactly what we discussed when we looked at the tech spec. So here I am, I line up into a side scraping position, use the rock to protect my front, just giving him the side of the tank to shoot at. And you can see he is tempted, show him a bit of leg, he is tempted, and I get the bounce, and then I'm able to clear them off. And that is really playing to the strengths of this tank, using the fast reload, knowing the armor profile I have on the side of the tank, and being able to side scrape, get that bounce off him. And the T34, sorry, the Type 58, the Chinese T34-85, has a decent penetration and decent gun, but by side scraping I'm able to get that bounce and clear him off using my rate of fire. I did not know he was there, and he really hurt me, hit me twice in the butt. And I thought I was going to be able to use the contours of the terrain here to get around the butt, and actually hits me again, and now I'm down to a one shot. So now I have to be really cautious in this game. I clear off the KV2, but now I have to be really cautious. I'm a one shot even for the low DP roll on the AT2, so I need to be really cautious. So what I decide to do here, guys, is I'm not going to go after that AT2, because I'm a one shot for him, and he has a really fast reload, so he can easily, you know, fire a few shots on spec. So what I decided to do was already captured C, so I'm thinking, well, what I can do is let my allies go after him, and I'm going to try to cap, because if I can cap this base and maybe even cap A, then I might get a mastery badge, right? So because mastery badges are all about XP, so this is about sort of in-game sort of decision making, playing the hand you're dealt. So right now I've been dealt a hand where I'm a one shot. I think I have top damage in the game. There we go, I'm able to put in a little bit more damage. He moves off, I drop the adrenaline hoping I might get another shot. I don't, so I just decide to go and take A, and there's a possibility it might deliver a mastery badge for me. So it's the in-game decision making, playing to the map, playing to the hand that you're dealt at a particular time. And these sort of decisions often are the difference between delivering, let's say, a first class and a mastery badge. In this instance, I don't get the mastery badge, but I must have been very, very close in terms of XP. So, you know, you could charge over and try to kill the AT2, but realistically, you know, how much more damage could you do? And you also run the risk of being killed yourself. This way, survive, you know, helps your win 8, helps your win 7. There we go, first class mastery badge delivered, over 1000 XP and to over 2.3k of damage. So overall, good demonstration of this tank in action, playing to its strengths, which are basically its concealment numbers, its view range, its rate of fire, all of its gun handling. All of these things make this tank formidable opponent if played right. And of course then you saw side scraping, which is something which you don't often talk about in medium tanks, but it can be done, particularly when you're up against another light or medium tank. More difficult, of course, up against the heavier TD. And you can see the sharpshooter badge delivered is an indication of how good the gun handling is on this tank. So overall, I think good demonstration of this tank. When you're top tier, this tank can be really effective. When you're bottom tier, you need to be a lot more cautious, because, you know, with the big guns that are out there, you can easily one shot. You need to be very cautious. So let's have a recap. This is a decent medium tank. It's also a good price at the moment, €8. It's not bad for a collectible tank, and it looks great, so it's good to have in your garage. It's not hugely different from the Techline tank, so it's really only if you're into these girls and Panzer or collectible tanks, you know, very few differences, really very few. I would run rice, improved fuel, and origini, which is basically more rice, as we said. rice balls. That will help with the tank's performance. A gun rammer, supercharger, vertical stabilizer, because you're going to fire a lot when you're moving, as you would expect with a medium tank. I think this also maximizes the gun handling in this tank, which is good anyway, but this maximizes the performance of that gun handling and allows you to get the most out of this very decent gun system, which this tank has, and you saw it to effect there in the game. It has decent armor for a medium, and what I mean by that is, look, we looked at the arm profile, it's not great, but if you angle, you can get, for example, those side scraping bounces. Mobility sucks, so therefore you need to use the engine accelerator. Power to weight ratio is just awful, and sometimes it feels like it's moving in through mud. But with the rate of fire, it can be a good brawler, and basically allows you to actively engage in the game more often. You can take shots on spec, fire shots to see if you can spot up the enemy, fire shots to track the enemy, etc. Because you have a really fast reload. That 4.8 second reload is really good, and allows you to be very effective in terms of engaging with the enemy and actively participating in the game, which of course is the complete opposite to a slow loading tank. Good pen numbers, really good pen numbers. I mean, if you remember our Panzer 70 review, the pen numbers are almost as good on this as they are on that, which is a tier 9. Good gun handling, as we said, 11.5k on the gun index, which is really good, almost as good as the best in class, like the VK2801, which has over 12k. So really good handling, and you saw that in action in the game. So very good gun handling, won't let you down. Music was Wagner, Flight of the Valkyries, and the other music in the tech spec was the Horde from the original soundtrack of Warcraft, a very decent movie for all you nerds. And of course, if you're into Panzer and girls, you are probably a nerd, so enjoy. So cheers Mush, thanks for watching. Remember to keep your mask on and your pants off, and I guess all that remains for me to say is, from me too, pants off.